Hello, 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 hello. Thank you for joining me on Monday. Let me know if you are joining me in the chat. I'm asking for it. Let me know you're here. Today we're talking about reconnecting with your film contacts. Now, this isn't for people who are starting from scratch, but it could be useful for you in the future when you are a little bit more established. You've got some contacts under your belt. Like maybe this could be people who have one, two, thousands of contacts they're just not utilizing. Gotta make sure I don't lose my voice. I hope everyone can hear me. It looks like my microphone is working. I hope everyone had a really good weekend. It was raining yesterday. I think it was raining yesterday. And it is lovely outside today. I went for like my walk outside and I was like sweating. So it's, I think, traditionally a little bit too warm outside. So reconnecting with your film contacts, we're going to break this down into things you should be doing, things you are not doing or maybe you shouldn't do. Also, I'm going to break it down by time. So essentially, we're going to start with maybe people you haven't really talked to in a year or 2 years, 3 years even, and what you should be doing, how you should approach it. Because I think depending on the amount of time that you've talked to somebody, it really is going to dictate how you approach them and your tone in your conversation. So, and I think that a lot of people, when it comes to their film career, when it comes to succeeding, they are not really thinking about reconnecting, because when you are in film, you get text a lot, you get a lot of emails, and it's kind of overwhelming. If I'm being honest, the amount of emails and texting that you are going to be a part of is crazy. One of my Beyond Film School alumni during the film challenge, now we were shooting a short film. We were shooting a short film, zero budget, in like 9 to 10 days. And even she was like, whoa, the amount of emails and texting and the amount of communication that is involved, I was not prepared for. So when you think about going to larger scale, bigger budget, and you're just like, wait a second, this is crazy. The amount of text threads you're a part of, all the emailing and different types of it's insane. The amount of things that you have to answer is crazy. So that involves you getting people's number when you're part of a PA team or any department in film, or maybe you're a production assistant or an office assistant and you are on the producer thread or something. You have access to all these contacts, especially if you are staffed on a show. You have the crew list, for God's sake. And the crew list is there, I'm not going to say for a reason, but if you got to contact people. But also, that is that's to your advantage when you're on a show. You have access to the crew list, and that's people's emails and phone numbers, what they do, their name, all that stuff. Now, the crew list should not be abused. First and foremost, it should not be abused. So, for example, I say use the crew list when you're like, oh my God, me and this person really got along really well. I changed my phone number and I lost all my contacts and I know they know me. So then maybe you would access your crew list and be like, oh, okay, I can now contact this person. Some people use the crew list for a dating service, and I highly I'm going to say no for that. I highly recommend not using it for that reason. Some people definitely have used it for that, and I'm like, no. If like, oh yeah, I saw you on set, we barely talked, and I really wanted to get to know you. No, thank you. No, that is not what we're doing here today, folks. We are not talking about that. So reconnecting with your film contacts, people have like thousands of phone numbers in their phone when they first start out. Even after 6 months or even just a year working in film, you're going to have so many contacts in your phone. Reconnecting is going to be essential for your film career. People are not reaching out. They're not reconnecting. They're just not contacting people that they should be, essentially, for advice, for feedback, for anything. And they're wondering why they haven't moved forward in their career. And they're like, why am I still doing this? Why am I still in the same position? And you have all these people in your phone and you're just sitting on them. You're just not really utilizing. You're not utilizing the opportunities that's in front of you. Okay. And I know when you have those contacts, I think maybe a lot of people wonder, how do I go about talking to them? And this is exactly why I'm doing this live stream. People are like, okay, I have these people on my phone, but what now? Right? So how are you going to go about texting? Maybe you're a set PA and you're like, oh God, how do I reach out to this key second AD that doesn't really know me? You worked for them. Maybe they didn't notice you. Maybe you didn't really talk very much. And I think that you need to be smart about who you are going to contact, right? So I think that the big ones are the people that you worked with often on set, where you're around them all the time, every day. It's, for example, maybe the additional PA, your close contact is going to be that key PA, right? That's going to be someone who you're going to be interacting with all day long, or other set PAs. Now, this is something I will address. It's like, it's not just your contacts who are above you, but your peers. Because I think a lot of people definitely don't think of peers as being the right person to connect them or give them opportunity, or like, it's almost like, well, they're my peer, they're my competition. And that's, I think, where the thinking goes wrong, because once you start thinking of your peers as competition, you are limiting yourself. Really, you should look at every person that is a peer of yours as opportunity, as someone who you can bring up, and then they might bring you up. So I mean, that is just, I think I talked about this yesterday, the foundation of my philosophy of Beyond Film School is like, there is enough to go around. There's no reason to be competing with others, because again, you don't know what their goals are at all. They could be going for something that is wildly different from you. They could be, yeah, they might be in the same spot as you. They might be working as an additional set PA or a set PA on a show that you're on, and you're in the same spot then, but you don't know what came before. You don't know what's coming after. You have no idea what everyone is doing with their lives. So don't count anybody out. And I know you've noticed this. And I think someone definitely, when I was a barista, some people actually accused me of this. And I've seen it, and it's kind of hard, right? Because you want to make sure that you're doing the job, you're doing all the good work in front of your bosses or your superiors or the people who are leading you, and you're like, I want to make sure that they know that I'm doing a good job. So you put on the show, or you make sure you're more talkative with your bosses, and then your peers are like, where the fuck did this person come from? And you're not really showing yourself to your peers, and you're not engaging with your coworkers, which is like that's a big mistake, I think. So, and that was something I had to like look at when I was accused of this, and I was like, oh, maybe it's because I just really am standoffish with my peers. And this wasn't really I wasn't accused of this when I worked in film. I was accused of this when I was like my side gig, when I was trying to get more days in film. But then I think I noticed it more and more when I was an additional set PA. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't really want to talk to my other like fellow additional PAs. I was like, why is this person bugging me? Like, and it was always like, hey, where are you from? And I was like, motherfucker, like, I know that you're just trying to get ahead, right? And it just had a really, really messed up mindset when it came to me talking to people on set. So that's one thing, is just making sure that you're civil and respectful of everyone on set, but also, show your worth to everybody, not just your bosses. Because listen, if you think about it, when you think about like all the people that are going to hit up that AD or that key PA, there's a lot of people, right? And how many people are going to be hitting up that peer for work, or like making that connection work with that someone who's not really in high demand, right? So if you think about like, if you're thinking about it logically, and if it's a numbers game, then you want to go for people as like who are on your level as well, because people are not going to be like, okay, like maybe this person can give me a job because they might not be available. And that is a tactic and I tell my set PAs in my class all the time when it comes to networking. I'm like, the people in this class is your first network of people. So maybe they get hired, but then they might get hit up again and they can't do that gig. They might reach out to someone in their class, right? So that is something that you can do to expand your circle and make sure that you're kind of like looking out for your peers. But also when you can give work to somebody, it is amazing. And we're definitely going to talk about that later. But a lot of people don't start reaching out to the people on their phone or in their contacts, because there's a lot going on. There's a reason, like, okay, first is, I have no idea what to do. How do I start the conversation? That is one. Like the unknown. Like, I have no idea how to do this. That is one element to why people don't reach out to their contacts and reach out to people who are already in their phone, right? I get it. The other thing is going to be fear of rejection. Now, that is huge, because you're like, okay, well, if I say that I'm available and I worked on this thing and I want to work with you again, like, they just will say like, nah, we're going in a different direction. Or, I mean, most of the time, and I'll tell you this, most of the time, no one's going to be like, no. They'll just ignore you, right? So the fact that you might not get your text answered is a form of rejection for a lot of people. Being left on red is not fun. Now, what I will say to that is, being left on red and making sure that, like, someone might be or might not be ignoring you, is to just think about the time factor. Some people will text you right away. Some people will wait a day. Some people are gonna like wait a couple days. Who knows? Everyone has their own life. Everyone has their own lives going on, and they have things happening. So they might not be able to get back to you. They might be driving. They might be in a store. They might be like working out. We don't know why they didn't get back to you right away. So just because they didn't get back to you right away doesn't mean they're ignoring you. Therefore, let's just wash away the whole fear of rejection first and foremost. Just because they don't answer you right away, or just because they don't answer you, doesn't mean they're ignoring you. Okay? So the next thing is going to be fear of judgment. And this is a big one for people because, okay, I'm putting myself out there. That is super scary for a lot of folks. I get it. Putting yourself out there is huge. It's very scary. You're like, oh my God, you're like just out in the open and you're just like, So, and I've definitely, I don't want to say I've had this problem. I think everyone does, right? I think most of 90% of my being is, I don't give a fuck what other people think. I'm gonna do what I want. The other like 10% is like, oh my God, what if this person thinks that I'm desperate? Well, first of all, you need a job, right? So therefore you might be a little desperate. So just being like, whatever. Like if you have no shame, just go for it. Have no fear. Just send the text, right? The worst that can really happen is they say, fuck off. Or they just say nothing, right? So remember, like, the worst case scenario is like, hey, stop bothering me. Or, which I think if you really have to do a lot to get to that point of stop bothering me, hey, stop texting me, right? You have to do a lot to get to that point. So if you just send that one text or that one email and it gets ignored, I think that's the worst case scenario. Like, am I wrong? Let me know. What's worse, really, when we're talking about reaching out to people and having that, I don't know what they're going to say or think about me. Now, we have to remember that it doesn't matter. Like, who cares what people think? Who cares what people say? Like, who cares, right? We just got to remember just you got to live your life. You got to shoot your shot. You got to go after what you want. And it will really hold you back when you start thinking about what others think of you and what other people are saying about you. It's going to like stall you out and you're going to overthink and you're just going to be like, you're just going to freeze up and you're going to choke. And it's like, you're not going to do the things that you need to do to go further in your career. And that is the saddest thing, right? When people are just like, I can't do it. I can't go further. Like, I'm just kind of, I'm at a standstill. We don't want that, right? So I think fear of judgment, you really got to get past that. Just like, you know what? I don't care. I'm doing what I have to do to keep going forward. I have to keep going. I have to do what I have to do. And I have this all the time, even as an AD, like reaching out to my contacts. Now, when you're an additional PA, reaching out to your key PA, it's like, okay, you thinking back now, I'm like, that's kind of like small potatoes. It's not that bad, but you're like, oh man, I don't want to bother this key PA. I know they're like, you see the key PA is like losing their minds practically when they're they have a whole lot of things that they have to do, so you don't want to bother them. And that's the other thing, right? You don't send the text because you're like, I don't want to bother this person. But here's the thing about people who need PAs or people who are like, they're still at the beginning of their career. Maybe you've been a PA for a year and a half or an assistant or an office PA or something, that people need you guys, right? So if you had a decent relationship or you did a decent job on, that gig that you guys worked together, then remind them of who you are so you can put them at the front of, like, put yourself at the front of their minds. Just remind them of who you are, because it's like they need people. And I love this when people who, like, I've hired as SET PAs, as additionals, like, I go through a lot of different people. Now, I guess maybe I'm a different case because I run Beyond Film School and I have Beyond Film School alumni that I really want to make sure they get on set. I give them a chance, right? And if I think they're great, then yes, I'll definitely put them on a set. So I know I have like this constant Rolodex of people that I want to get on set, but also people who I encounter, like not through Beyond Film School. I've definitely had like so many people throughout my career where I'm like, oh man, I forget about them, like, and I'm like, wow, they were really dope. And then I see them again. I'm like, oh yeah, that's great. Like, I remember you from this. And if they didn't send me that reminder text of that they were available or they wanted to work with me again, I would have completely forgot about them. So thinking about that factor is a completely different, like, wow, like they did me a favor. And I tell my alumni, my SET PA trainees, like I tell them all the time, it is your job to remind me that you're available. I am on set. I am doing things. I'm doing a lot of different things, right? And I have a lot of people to address, text to answer, emails to get back to, and I may forget about someone I just trained. So if you don't text me and say, hey, I know I told you I was in South Carolina, but now I moved to New York, let me know if you need PAs. That's perfect, right? That for me is like, they did me a favor, because I am going to need to hire people. I am going to need to give, suggestions to my key PA. And when I was a key PA, that was the best. I was like, okay, yes, let me get them on. They were great the last time, or they were great in the training, let me get them on. So just thinking about it in a more, not negative, like, oh, I don't want to bother them, but like, think of it as a positive and say, I could be helping them out because they may need more people than their regular circle. Like, because your average days, you might need 4 or 5 additional PAs. But big days, you may need like 20 PAs. Well, maybe that key PA might be stretched, right? They don't have any more than 20 contacts or something. They're like, okay, because now what happens, and I've definitely seen this happen, where a key PA will have like a big day where they need 30 additionals, 15, 20, 25 additionals. And then they start asking everyone on the PA team, like, hey, who do you have? Can you like send me someone's contact info? Who can work, Thursday, Friday? Like, I need people. So, because they'll reach out to people. So if you at the front of their mind, they're like, oh, like, hey, I actually have a couple of days that you can be on because I have a big day. So you're actually kind of doing them a favor. And when you think about it like that way, like, I'm doing people a favor. I am giving them the opportunity to hire me and make it easy for them so they don't have to keep searching and searching and searching, because it is tough to book additionals when you're a key PA, just saying. Hi, Amanda, and hi, Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan said you weren't going to be here, and you're here. I'm so glad you're here. So thank you. Thank you, Amanda and Obi-Wan, for being here. And so I didn't even start with saying, like, if you have questions, if you have advice, put it in the chat. I love sharing. If you have a question, I know other people out there who watch the replay, who are on this live stream, will also have that question. They might have it. So questions are all welcome. And also advice, if you are like, yo, I did this and it worked, definitely add that in there, because you're just adding value to the community and you're just helping other people out. And I love that and I appreciate that. So anyone's 2 cents, please put it in there, definitely. And if something didn't work for you, please put that in, because sometimes some things don't work for people and they do work for people. Who knows, right? Everyone's going to have their own approach. Everyone's going to have their own way of doing things in a certain way that works for them. So I won't say like, this is like, point blank period, but what I will say is that this stuff worked for me and many other people who followed my advice. So this is why I'm telling you guys, and I'm trying to just give you guys a leg up and try to feel comfortable about reaching out to people who you're like, if you are unsure about. So I think a lot of the times what happens with people who are reaching out and trying to reconnect or go further in their film career, a lot of people starting out think it's just going to happen for them. And I hate going into this territory. I really don't like going into this territory, because working in film is hard. Working in film is hard enough. Breaking in is hard as hell. So you're like, oh yeah, I broke in, I got on this show. But the effort and the work that you have to put in to stay there is going to remain. It's a consistent thing that is always going to be there when you work in film. It never stops. So the one thing you need to get used to is like, yes, I constantly have to be in communication with people. I have to reconnect. I have to keep making sure people know I'm available. It's very rare, because you get paid really well when you are working in film and you're in a department, right? Once you're into the camera props, if you're like maybe you start becoming a writer, maybe you are a director, maybe you are a DJ, AD. Once you start getting into the union, you can make some serious money. And it's like the only, like, you can make like easy 6 figures if you're, working Monday through Friday. You can make some really, really good money, but then you still have to like make sure that you are preserving for those months you may not be working. We're still freelance. We still have to make sure that our job is coming up, that our next job is coming, that it's like we have to book the next job. It's like, I feel like we're sort of actors, but the amount of times we have to, it's like our casting isn't as frequent, I guess, because like, I think the average number of actors like that are actually working actors, like their average day on set is like 2 or 3 days, 1 to 3 days. So they always have to constantly like be looking for something, looking for a commercial and looking for something. Ours is just like the gaps are a little bit, hopefully a little longer. Sometimes we have those shorter projects. Sometimes we have those 7-month projects, we have 6 months, sometimes we have 4 months. So it varies, and there's no job security. We always have to keep looking for a job. So when we talk about reconnecting, this is super, super vital. And I feel like some people are not willing to put the effort in. And if you don't put the effort in, then it's like you're SOL, honestly. Like, you have to put the effort in. You cannot just be like, oh, you just like day by day, just like waiting for your phone to ring. Like, wait, just like, hey, I'm waiting for that phone call. I'm waiting for that text. I'm waiting for that email. And you're not looking for jobs online. You're not like reaching out to newer people. You're not like reconnecting with the people you already know because you're too scared for some reason. But you're not putting the effort in. And I think that will do you in. So if you don't put the effort in, don't expect anything. Don't expect to go far in your film career. And most people who don't put the effort in usually end up quitting. And they usually are like, this isn't for me. I gotta go. Like, bye. And listen, I understand strikes are a whole other thing. Like, strikes, I mean, the amount of people who are like, Amber, get out of the film industry. You gotta get out. The film industry's not gonna last. Like some videos I posted and like about the strike and strike blues and stuff like that. Some people who work in finance are like commenting on my channel like, you're in finance. What the hell do you know about, like, I don't know. But either way, they're like, film is not going to exist in like 2 years. I'm like, okay. I think I have a lot longer to go before the film industry totally evaporates and disappears. But Obi-Wan film will outlast us all. I mean, I'm not going to argue with that. I feel like I agree. So the fear of the unknown is a big, big factor in all of this, right? If you do contact someone, you don't know if they're going to get back to you. If you don't reach out, then you don't really know what your future holds for yourself, right? You don't know what they're going to say. You don't know how you're going to feel. Like, I remember when I first started reaching out to people and being like, it would just like cringe a little bit. And I'd be like, oh my God, like, I can't believe I just sent that text. But then they're like, oh, hey, Amber, what's going on? I would love to have you on this. And I'm like, oh my God, whew, thank God. You know, it's like that. You don't know how it's going to go. Fear of the unknown is the biggest factor here. Like, fear of judgment, fear of like rejection is one thing, right? But like, fear of the unknown, like, you have no idea what's going to happen once you try and reach out to people, or what they're going to say, or what they're going to do, or what they're going to feel about you. And I know you guys have heard this multiple times. No one's thinking about you. No one is like analyzing who you are as a person and thinking like, oh, what you've done great or not, like, unless you've asked them, or unless you've really done something I don't want to say dramatic, or something that may have stuck out on a job where they're like, wow, that person like really fucked up. But most of the time they're not like really thinking about you. And a lot of people are in their own worlds. You're in your own world because you are worried about what everyone else thinks about you, and literally everyone else is doing the same thing. No one is like, oh, I wonder what, you know what, Amanda, you're like X, Y, and Z, and I can't believe you're doing this, and I can't believe you reached out to me. Like, there are some things where, like, for me, I'm definitely over analytical, and I think that for me it's a little bit different because I do think about my set PAs, and I do think about what they're doing, because I care. Right? I care about their future and I want them to do the right things. So, but if they don't reach out to me and they don't, and you know, when I tell my set PAs, make sure you text me, because I give everyone in my training my phone number. I say, hey, this is my phone number. Text me your name and when you're available, what your plan is, whatever, and then just let me know when you're available, because then your number's in my phone. Because yes, I have their resume, yes, I have their email, but once you're in my phone, you're saved in my phone, it's different, because then I can just be like, I can pull up Beyond Film School members and be like, I can just, you know, text people or whatever, right? So it is their job to reach out to me, right? It is your job to reach out to people. It is no one's job to reach out to you. You have to be very, very good. You have to be like in the top like percentile of PAs and very, very high demand. And that is not a lot of people. That's very few people who are like, okay, I'm highly sought after. I'm not that sought after either. I have to do the work too. Like, I know, like, I'm a JAD and like I've done things and I'm on this thing, but like I also have to do the work. I have to reach out to people. I have to maintain relationships to make sure that I keep working, but also that I make sure that I have those authentic relationships. And we're gonna talk about those things a little bit too. But we're gonna break this down, like I said, into time. So let's just say we're gonna start with the like, let's see, like a year and beyond. So say you haven't talked to anyone in a year. Okay, so a year plus. I would say that email is definitely best because text is like, they haven't seen you in a couple of years. They're like, I feel like text is a little bit too impersonal, right? You're like, I haven't heard from you in I don't know how long. And it's funny, I just got a text today from a PA that I haven't heard from in I think maybe a year and some change, but I knew exactly who he was. We had a close enough relationship where I was like, yo man, what's up? What's happening? What's going on? So it was good that he texted me because I was like, yo, I haven't heard from him in such a long time. And he definitely was not in my mind at all. And now he is. I was like, oh, Stephen's great. So it's funny how that works. And I'm like talking about this today, and someone who I haven't spoken to in such a long time is like, "Hey, Amber, what's going on?" And it's funny. He was like, "Did I remember correctly that you taught swimming lessons?" And it wasn't even about like any type of job stuff. Fun fact: I used to teach swimming lessons when I was like 18, 19, or whatever. So yes, email I think is best when it's someone that you haven't really been in connection with for a very, very, very long time. Okay, be a person in the email. Like I said, we covered yesterday. Personability, likability, not being a robot, not being too formal, not using that corporate vernacular in your emails, being like, I would appreciate if, remember, you know this person. So you can be a little bit more lax. You can be a little bit more relaxed. Like you can just be a little bit more of yourself. So I think that, something's happening with my computer. It's freaking out. I don't know why. Okay. You can be a little bit more relaxed with this person because you know that you know them, right? So that is a factor you need to keep in mind when you are reaching out to people. When you know them and they know you, they're like, oh yeah, I remember this person. It's like these people that you've worked with enough times to you feel comfortable enough to be like, maybe have a joke, have a sense of humor, or remind, like you have to kind of, I don't know, isn't it weird if you know someone, for example, if, I don't know, I think, Taisha doesn't watch my live stream. Taisha is a Beyond Film School alumni, and I've worked with her multiple times. She took my class in 2021, I think, 2021, and sometimes if me and her aren't hanging out or being friends, or because we became friends, because we ended up rooming with each other in Atlanta when I had a job out there. So we became friends, but sometimes there might be a couple months where we don't talk. So then she gets like really formal with me. I'm like, girl, what you doing? You know me. Right? So it kind of is weird when you know someone really, really well, and then you're like, why are you being like, we know each other. Why are you being so formal? So I think you have to remember to be a person, be a real person, and be the person that they know you to be in this email, okay? So another thing that you want to make sure you do is how you've grown. And it's funny, Anthony is on this, Tony is on this live stream. Hi. No, that was not you, Anthony. Anthony, that was a couple days ago. That was like a couple weeks ago you reached out to me. But you are a really good example of this because I think, not to put Anthony on blast, but Anthony reached out to me in a really great way too because he was like, hey, I am, I worked on this with you. And then he was like, I've done this since then. And I think that's a really good factor because if you haven't worked with this person in a year and some change, give them a reminder of where you know them from, right? Like, hey, I worked with you. Because sometimes I kind of love when people put, hey, Amber, I was so-and-so. I don't know if you remember me. And like, I have a really good memory, but not everyone has a good memory like I do. I will admit that. So like, I remember a lot of different people. It takes me, like Anthony, for some reason, I could not picture his face. And I was like, oh my God, I know this. And I saved him in my phone. So I knew that I wanted to work with him again. So if I have people on my phone from set, I know that I want to work with them again. So like, I remember, like, when people are like, oh, I know you don't remember me, but just give me a reminder of where we worked together, and then what have you done since we worked together? And I think that's a really, really good way of saying, like, hey, I've grown a little bit, I've done more things since we worked together, so, I've learned more, I've grown, blah, blah, and I think that the next thing you need to do after making sure you've shown your growth is show your appreciation, because again, like I said yesterday in the live stream with making connections is like, thank them for their time, for even reading this damn email you're about to send them, right? Why are you reaching out to them? Did you like working with them? You appreciate them giving you the opportunity before. You would appreciate if you worked with them again. But like whatever. Show some type of appreciation for them. And I'm not saying lie, blow sunshine up their ass or anything like that. I'm talking like being authentic. Like why are you reaching out to this person specifically? Because in your mind, you have like, say you have like 50 people you can probably email, and there's a reason why you've chosen those 5 people. You felt closer to them. Maybe they made you feel more comfortable on set. Maybe it was like you learned a lot from them. So thinking back to like why you chose that person to contact. Now, you're not going to contact every single person in your, your email list or your contact list, right? You're going to pick the people that you're like, I think I have a good shot. I think I have a good shot at making sure that I can probably land another job with them or work with them again, because I really do want to work with them again. Being authentic is so important. I really cannot stress. Don't be fake. I can't. Don't be fake, because I will see right through that shit, and so will a lot of other people. Like, I know you got to be as honest and as authentic as possible when it comes to this type of stuff. Because as soon as I think that you're using me as a means to an end, like, I get it. We all want jobs. We all want to work together, and we want to get further. But as soon as I feel like I'm a stepping stone, that like really gets me, and I don't like it. I don't like it. No one else does either. So let's be honest. Do you like being used as a stepping stone? I don't think so. So the next thing is your goal. What are you trying to do? Like, I have people who reach out to me that say, hey, I'm working toward, getting my book into the DGA. They're great. And I would love to give you days. What are you trying to do? Like, I think once you share your goals, once you share your goals, people like to help you get to your goals. And it is very underrated. And also, there's like this weird campaign of don't talk about your goals because people will poo-poo your goals. Listen, if people are poo-pooing your goals, I don't give a fuck. You will still tell people your goals, because you got to tell the right people your goals, right? Tell people what you want to do. I'm not talking about listen, I understand that many people in this world do not have a supportive system that is around them. They don't have a supportive family. They may not have a supportive spouse. Like, if you have changed careers, you've worked in, medicine or healthcare for 10, 12 years, and you're like, I want to work in film. And I've actually had these people take my training. And they're like, I'm trying to change my career. Or for example, Diane, she was a lawyer, and then she was a flight attendant, and then she is now working in indie film. Right? She's reinvented herself 3 times, which is amazing to me. So shout out to Diane. She's probably not watching this right now because she's working on set somewhere. But shout out to her, because she just went after it. She didn't care what people thought, whether or not her goals were too lofty or too ambitious. She just went after it. So, but she told me what she wanted to do, and she always asked me questions, and she put the effort in, and she put herself out there, and she did all the things I would say in my live stream yesterday. Is she went to all the Facebook groups, and she contacted who she put a lot of effort in, and I really, really appreciate her for she just went after it. So, but it takes that to make it, right? So share your goals. Sharing your goals is very, very important. What are you asking for? Now, you may have shared your goals yes, I want to be an AD, or yes, I want to be on set more, or yes, or I'm trying to not to put Anthony on blast, but Anthony works in the COVID department. So a lot of people who are trying to get into the industry were like, yes, the COVID department, right? But now the COVID department is not a thing, unfortunately. So it has been phased out after 3 years, because now we don't have the COVID protocols. We don't have all the things that were in place. And now we don't need that department to run COVID, right? The COVID health and safety, whatever. So a lot of people were like, yes, this is a new department. I can get my way in. While those people were in the COVID department, what they should have been doing was networking the shit out of that opportunity and been like, hey, I know I'm in COVID right now, but I really want to be a set dresser. Or I know I'm in COVID right now, but next season or can I be an additional PA? Or, you know what I mean? They really needed to network as much as possible. And I think Anthony was he was really good at doing that. He was really respectful of everybody, and he wasn't a dick and whatever. So I think making sure that you have goals, first of all. Know what they are. I just had a short talking about goals yesterday. Please check it out. But if you don't have goals, that's trouble. The foundation is shaky, and I don't recommend you persist until you figure out what you want in this film industry. Okay, so share your goals. What are you asking for? So if you are trying to be X, Y, and Z, like how is this person that you're emailing, how can they help you? You know, and attach your resume. Make sure your resume is dope. And a reminder, I have my resume review live stream happening on the 17th. So if you want your resume reviewed for free, I will do that for you here. So just send me your resume at beyondfilmschool@gmail.com. So attach your resume. That's super important because sometimes they want to actually see on your resume how you've grown. How has it changed since you last worked with them? So a year and beyond is tricky, but email is best. Be a person. How you've grown, show your appreciation, share your goals, and what are you asking for? You know, and this is like, don't rush when you're writing these emails. Do not rush. It takes some thought, takes some care. Think about the person, think about how you're presenting yourself. You know, show your respect for them, but also try and make sure you are showing your personality at the same time. It's all very hard. It's hard and it just takes time. So just make sure you take your time when you are writing these emails. Sometimes I've spent like half an hour on writing like one reconnection email. I'm like, oh my God. And I would say that, I don't want to be like, what I did this past couple weeks is like, I have one AD in particular where I thought I should have stayed in contact with her throughout the strike. And then I just kept living my life. And then I was like, oh shit, I haven't talked to her in like months. And then it's like, then it was just 6, 7, 8 months. I was like, oh man, I haven't talked to her in forever. So then the strikes end. And that could have been my in to, oh my goodness, why does this keep happening? I don't know. I'm just going to close my Chrome. Sorry guys, this is weird. Google is tripping out. I have no idea why. It's weird. Okay. So, and then what is like the next thing that's happening is like the strike ends. I could have had that be the thing that I'm like, you know, oh my God, congrats, the strike has ended. But then what ended up happening for me was, I was like, oh man, she's only going to think I'm celebrating the strike with her, or the end of the strike, I should say, the end of the strike with her because she thinks I want a job. I'm like, that is not the reason why I'm contacting her, but like, damn it. So I found myself stuck. So I didn't do it. I didn't do it. So I didn't send the, yay, the strike has ended celebratory text. I didn't send it. So then Thanksgiving comes. I'm like, oh man, maybe I should say happy Thanksgiving to her. It's my perfect end. But then I'm like, no, now this seems even more fishy and it seems even more like I just want a job. I'm like, so I actually had a good connection with her. But at the same time, I'm like, no, it is perceived, because she is very analytical. And she does read into everyone's actions very, very much. That's how much I know her as a person. So I was like, what do I do? I'm like, no. So I didn't send the happy Thanksgiving thing. I'm like, oh goodness. So I was definitely stuck. This happened like this year, guys. So it happens to me where I'm like, oh my, how do I approach this? So eventually what I am doing is I was like, all right, I'm on my reconnection campaign. I focus on like 1 or 2 people a day. And then I finally got to her and I was like, oh man, this email. It took me like 2 days to write this email, guys. So it takes time. And I finally got out a really good, heartfelt, like honest email. I was like, hey, I haven't reached out to you in such a very long time. And this may not feel as significant because I feel like it, you know, I just was super honest about how I felt about this whole thing that I just went through. So, and it landed really well. Thank goodness. But it was like, I don't want her to think that I don't appreciate her and I don't like, you know, we only just keep working together. And it's just like weird. I just really felt like she had to know how much I appreciated her. So I'm gonna go to the chat because y'all are saying things, and plus I opened I could definitely closed my pop-out chat because for some reason it was being weird. Okay. Somebody hadn't spoken to me in like 4 years and I barely knew. I met them like 3 times at parties, text me one day, no idea how they got my number. They text in town time for coffee and a chat. Yeah, that's like, you gotta give it's like, what's happening? So yeah, you gotta give them some context for sure. Hoping in the future when I can pull it together, I say when, cause I am manifesting it. So you just gotta like, oh man, you wanna talk about manifesting? Ooh! Don't get me started on manifesting, because if you want me to go on manifesting, I will tell you all the things, guys. Man, it is, I got a lot of stuff to talk about when it comes to manifesting. And you'd be willing to be my first lady on a project. Yes, I would. Of course I would. Pfft, are you kidding me? all my COVID training wasted. No, don't say that. Don't say that. You can still reach out to people though. You can be like, hey, I worked in the COVID department. Hey, I'm trying to like reach out. You can still do it because they know you to be in that department, right? It's actually funny when you said 1 p.m. yesterday, I had a brain fart because I forgot the time zone difference. Oh, yeah. Well, everyone, I'm glad you're here. Okay, so we're gonna move on to 6 months to a year. Now, I say this can be an email or a text. And the tone definitely depends on the relationship. Could be very concise, could be very informal. Now, I feel like they're newer, right? It hasn't been years. It's a little bit more fresh, right? So you have way more flexibility, I feel like. You can use email or text here. I feel like this is a nice, like a very flexible spot. Again, you have to remind them who you are. I don't think I put that in the first one. But I did say, like, remind the person of, like, where you worked with them before, right? So you're definitely going to do this here because 6 months to a year, like, man, that's right? There are a lot of things that people are doing in that time frame. So, and the tone, again, depends on the relationship. So you can be a little more informal or jokative with someone who you were closer with. Or you got to be a little bit more formal and like a little bit more respectful with someone who you're like, maybe they're a lot higher than you. And I guess I didn't really talk about that factor. People who are, like maybe you're here and then they're here, but then you have some people you want to reach out to who are like way up on the chain of like your bosses or the hierarchy of your bosses. If you're a staff PA reaching out to a first AD, like, okay, that for me, I'd be like, okay, a little bit more formal and respectful and choose, my words a little bit more carefully. So again, remind them who you are and attach your resume, of course. So if you are writing an email, of course, if you're doing a text, I would say if things are a little bit more informal and you guys are a little closer, then I would be okay with sending a text. I've gotten some of those. So I'm like, when they're like, hey, Amber, what's up? But the one thing I don't want you to do in a text or in an email, well, I guess maybe this is more text specific, is we all know the strikes have ended. And I've gotten a lot of different texts from different PAs I've worked with over the years. And, they're like, hey, Amber, just checking in. Oh, really now? These strikes have just ended. You're just checking in on me? We all know what you're doing. I much more appreciate people who are like, hey, strikes have just ended. I'm trying to find a job. Maybe not that like crass, or maybe not that straightforward, but you're putting it out there like, hey, hope you're well. I am available. If you're working on something, let me know if you need additional PA, or let me know if you need a staff PA or something. Like I know why you're texting me. Don't hide behind this like schmoozing like sweetness like, oh, I was just wondering how you were. No, you weren't. Now, there is a difference sometimes where what'll happen is the universe will send you signs. We'll talk about manifesting and all that and energy and all that jazz. But you will, for some reason, and I actually use this tactic for myself to, compose an email for an AD I haven't talked to in years. And you will just get signs or reminders of certain things. And you're like, oh, that reminds me of so-and-so. Reach out to them. For some reason, they're popping in your head for a reason. You can be like, hey, for whatever reason, I just remembered you and I thought about this or whatever. And like, it made me laugh. I hope you're well. Because sometimes that does happen. And that is actually a really honest, authentic way of like reaching out to people. Of like, whenever they pop into your head or something happens, you're like, oh shit, that reminds you of so-and-so. That is just a sign that you should be reaching out to that person, as far as I'm concerned. So in the past month, I have gotten so many different people from the same show, New Amsterdam, when I worked on season 2 of New Amsterdam. And I heard from the background helper, I heard from the first team helper, the key PA, and the second on that show. Oh, and there was one of the, she was the first team runner or something, but a bunch of these PAs, but now they're like, some of them are ADs, some of them are out of the business, whatever, but like either way, I heard from like half the people who worked on that show in like a span of a week. It was very weird. I was like, okay, well, so then I was like, so I sent the key second that I know that we had somewhat of a relationship with, and I reached out to her and I sent her an email and I was like, hey, being brave right now, I want to send my resume. I'm using that being brave tactic that I talked about yesterday because I kind of was scared to send all these emails to these ADs. Because when it comes to me reaching out to ADs I know have worked for years and years and years, they have way more experience than me, have worked on way bigger stuff than me. I'm like a little like, so I get the anxiety. I get it. So I used that. I was like, hey, I'm being brave. And for some weird reason, I've talked to this person, all from season 2. And I figured I'd reach out to you because she kept popping up in my head. So like weird stuff like that, like when signs and things pop up, use them to your advantage. Because like, some people are like, oh, I had a dream about you. Like, okay, like that weird thing that exes use sometimes in relationships. Don't use that in this way. I'm just saying, like, when people pop into your head for a certain reason, like that could be a sign, like maybe you should be reaching out to that person. Who knows, right? So 6 months to a year, email or text. Yo, I didn't even realize I have a typo in there. Oh my word, guys, don't look at it. I'm just gonna get off this slide. So tone depends on your relationship, and also I think the way you use email or text might also depend on your relationship. Remind them of who you are, and then attach your resume. Okay, so the next one we're going to talk about is 1 month to 6 months. I would say it's very, very safe to use a text. And text is totally fine. Maybe even a phone call, like calling them up, like, hey, what's going on, whatever. If you are a phone call type person, listen, I don't like talking on the phone. That's why everything in this list is practically email and text, because that's just my form of communication with a lot of different people. Some people will call me and I will talk to them on the phone. There's nothing wrong with that. You can totally call people if that is their jam. Some people do not like talking on the phone. So just make sure you're taking that person's personal preferences into account, because some people love talking on the phone. And like for me, if you call me, I will make the effort to talk to you. But man, if I don't feel like talking on the phone, I will ignore that phone call and totally text you back. And there are some people who are definitely like me, and I don't know if it's like a millennial thing or just a generational thing. I don't know. People who are older don't mind talking on the phone. But also, I think that the art of phone calls is dying out, and it's definitely useful. But a phone call sometimes, maybe you can really impact a person more with a phone call. So it depends on what you're trying to achieve here and what kind of impact you want to have. And can you hold a conversation with this person on the phone? That is another thing you should think about. So 1 month to 6 months, make sure you can text, keep it short and sweet, make sure you greet them, say when you're available. I've definitely had this where people have reached out to me, they're like, hey, I hope you're well, I'm available to work, blah, 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 blah. That's totally fine. I'm like, great. And they're like, hey, how are you doing? That's totally fine. I think that is very concise. They're very clear what they want. They're not like blowing sun, like not bullshitting me and stuff like that. So that's totally fine. And I don't know. Do you think this is okay? This is not okay? I don't know. Right? I think it is, because I'm okay with this. I'm okay with straightforward. And some people like to do jokes. Some people like to use their sense of humor here in texting. I remember I started this Facebook thread on Local Zero, and some people, this one person was like, I tell them I need to feed my cats. Or something like that. And I was like, I hope to God you tell people that every time you reach out and reconnect with people, because it's funny, and you can tell that that's their personality. So make sure you use your personality to your advantage, and make sure you show it. And I preach this when it comes to the resume too, like making sure you show your personality. That is just be a person. Be the person you are. Just be authentic. And I know, I get it. It's hard. It is very, very hard. So next thing, you just finished a gig. You just finished a gig, right? This is something that I feel like would be way more common and something that people always do, but a lot of people don't. I tend to get a few of these, or maybe I just don't get enough of them. I don't know. So if you just finished a gig, you can send a quick text and be like, hey, it was great working with you. I hope I can work with you again. Or, that right there is a pretty solid text that I've gotten from many PAs. And I was like, oh, and they, you just share your appreciation for them. And sometimes they'll tell you or you can tell someone what you learned from them, or how you've grown since the beginning of the project to where you are now and whatever. So showing appreciation right when you finish a gig, maybe give it a few days, maybe it's a week after, hey, I really loved working with you. Hope I can work with you again. Nothing wrong with sending that type of text. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, you have to be honest. You can't just be like, send it to every damn AD. Remember that if you are a PA or you are someone who's starting out and is a set PA, be careful because all the ADs who are on that job do talk to each other. I mean, practically everyone in the DGA, we all know each other. There's like 2 degrees. So if I may not know the person, I know for a fact, I know someone who knows that person and who's also another AD. So the one thing you have to make sure is that you're not going to send a blanket text to all of the ADs on that show. It's about really finding that special spot or that something that they did for you that you truly do appreciate and you're showing your gratitude toward them. It's not just this, hey, it was really great work with you. Hope to work with you again. And you send that to every AD on the job. Like, that's not what I'm telling you to do. It's like you have to make sure that you are not, it's like that being friends with everybody, but you're not really anyone's friend. You're not really trying to put effort into one or two directions. You're trying to like be everyone's ally. And I think from that survey that I've been sending around, and if you are so inclined to fill it out, I would really appreciate your feedback. But it is in the description of this live stream. If you just click below, it's like there. And if you want to give your opinion, please, I love everyone's feedback. But a lot of the things that I'm finding is that they are, like trying to be friends with everybody. Or they're trying to take every job and they're trying to be friends with literally everybody. And they're not really focusing their efforts on the real connections that they could be making. And I feel like if you don't have to be friends with everybody, right? Not everyone's going to like you, and that's totally fine. Like, I understand being respectful and civil to everybody. That is one thing. Of course, we're all humans. We all respect each other. It's a thing. But you are naturally going to be more attracted, or there's going to be more chemistry. And I don't mean attracted in the romantic sense. I mean attracted is just like, me and this person vibe. We have fun. There's a thing there, right? So you don't want to send that same text to everybody. And I know people have used that, and it's like, that is not going to get you anywhere. I can see right through that. Like, let's be honest. You have to, just show some emotion. Get not too vulnerable, but like, hey, I really appreciate you when you really helped me learning background or something. I don't know. But make sure you just are being authentic and you're not just giving this generic text to every person you've worked with. And I can tell, and I can totally tell when I've gotten those types of emails. I'm like, oh, it sounds like they send this literally to everybody. So I'm like, come on, guys. You can tell. You can totally tell. And whether or not you believe in energy, which you should, because it's like, everything is made out of energy. Like, you can tell from just the tone and like the vibe of the text or an email, like what they're doing, what they're trying to achieve. So if you go into it and you compose that text or that email with like feeling and of appreciation and gratitude, they're gonna feel that on the other end. It's not just like this made up thing of like, I'm gonna like, if you feel like you're being annoying, you're probably being annoying. If you feel like you're sounding desperate, well, then you're sounding desperate. If you are feeling it while you're writing it, then they're gonna feel it on the other end. And I think people forget about that. So just keep that in mind when you're writing these reconnecting emails or text. But I just like also showing your appreciation for someone just in general is just like great. Like, you know what? I really like the fact that you're funny on set. I really like the fact that you're like easygoing and like you just follow directions. Like, I try and give all the compliments I can on set just because I'm like, I don't think that doesn't happen enough. For me, I'm always like, I like the way you do this, or, I like the way you have handled X, Y, and Z. I just try and spread the love as much as I can because there's not a lot of that goes around on set and it needs to change. So, and I just encourage everyone to do the same. So the next thing is a current gig that is about to end. And this is very, very useful if you are on a long-term show. So for example, you are on, I don't know, let's just say Law and Order. My friend's working on Law and Order, so that's the first thing that comes to mind. You're working on Law and Order. It was a 7-month job, 8-month job, and it's about to end in a month. It's about to end, you're at the tail end, you're in the last month. Now you got to start thinking about where you want to go next, because you want to make sure you have a gig lined up. And 2 to 3 weeks before it ends, that's usually when I start reaching out to people and being like, hey, I am available on this time. I'm currently on this show, but if you need anybody, I'm available. So you start reaching out to people again. This is when you start reaching out to people. You say when you're available. Is very, very, some people forget because you're going to be on your last day, you're wrapping out, and you go to the wrap party and you're like, I don't have a job lined up. Ugh. And a lot of people don't like that. For me, I like to go on vacation. So I like to give it a minute. But I definitely am thinking about my next gig or whether or not I want something right away or not, depending on like what the financial situation is and stuff like that. So keep in mind like where your timeline wants to be, where your financial security wants to be, and what you want to do next. You got to start thinking about that before the current gig that you're on ends. Do I have anything else after this? Oh, yes. On the gig. I'm like, what do I have next? So when you're actually on the job, now you're like, this doesn't really go into reconnecting, but it is what stems to better reconnection, right? So if you're on set and you don't talk to anybody, you don't engage, you don't make an effort to teach others, then when it comes to reconnecting with the people on your phone, they're not going to know who the hell you are. Okay? So while you're on set, while you're on a gig currently, make sure you seek feedback from people. Ask questions. Keep communication open. Are you receptive to people giving you like, hey, you know what? Like, I liked what you did, but also what you could do to improve is this. Can you take that? Some people can't take that. Their egos are so like big that they're like, how dare you say I need to improve on X, Y, and Z. I'm sorry, we're all people. We can all improve on something, myself included, 100%. So make sure you seek feedback. Ask people, hey, am I doing this right? Like, is there any way I can do this better? I feel like there might be a more efficient way. Like, how do you do this? Keep communication open. That's super, super important because the more you talk to people, the more you ask questions, the more you are receptive to feedback, that is engaging more with people. Therefore, they're going to remember you when it comes time for you to reconnect with them later. So it all stems from what you do on set already. Now, mind you, I was that additional PA that hated talking to people. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody. So, and I connected with one person. When I was on my very, very first union gig, I really was like, oh man, this is tough. I was crying all the time. It's bad. It was really, really bad. But then I connected with one other like literally just one other person I felt comfortable with, talking to and getting feedback from and asking questions to this person. I'm naturally inquisitive and I am naturally like curious about how people do their job. So I want to learn more all the time. And like the fact that me and him connected, I was able to ask him more questions. So he remembered me. And I wasn't in film for like a period of 2 or 3 years. And I worked at a TV station. I worked in master control. I was a master control operator. And then I left that job and I went into film distribution and acquisition. So I was in that job for another year. I was away for a hot minute. I wasn't really, 2 years, 2.5 years I was away. And then I got fired from my distribution job. Story for later. But either way, I went out like a champ. I don't care what anyone says. And I saw that as my way. I'm like, I have to get back on set. I miss being on set. I got to get back to the union narrative stuff. And he is the first person that popped in my head. And I said, hey, I haven't worked in a couple years. I hope you're doing well, but let me know if you need someone. And he was like, hey, Amber, oh my God, what's going on? Definitely got something. I have like Spider-Man happening in like 2 weeks. I was like, okay, great. But then turns out I couldn't do it. It was a whole thing. It was like, but either way, it was someone that I could reach out to and he was super receptive and he was like very welcoming and like only because I made that one connection. And then I got another job and I made more It's like, for me, it was a lot of baby steps. And like, I wasn't always so like cheery and so like positive. Like I was miserable. I had anger issues. I was like horrible. I wasn't very fun to be around. I was very brutally honest. It's like, oh man, it's tough time. I feel like the person I was 10 years ago is definitely not who I am now. So thank God I've learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about people, learned a lot about the people in the film industry and stuff. And I'm able now to engage more with people. But also I think what helped this grow is the fact that I'm teaching others now. And I mean, it kind of stems, like me starting Beyond Film School starts with, I wanted to hire people on all the stuff I was working on. I couldn't find people fast enough. So that was one problem. But also, like, I was able to train people and help the person I used to be with no contacts, no experience, no whatever. So as soon as I like clicked over into that like thing where I'm like, I can teach others, even though I'm not super high in my career yet, I can teach them to get where I am because I know people are trying to break in. So when you teach others and you help people get ahead, for some reason, things just open up for you and you just keep going and going and going and going. And things just keep opening up. There's more and more opportunity for you. And it's just like crazy how that works because like I said in the beginning of this, when you are in that competition mindset, and I was in that mindset for such a long time because I would look over at the next PA next to me and I'd be like, this person's getting so many days, and I would be like really envious and jealous. I'm like, oh, they're on all the time. They're an everyday additional, and I'm only a day player. And I would always think about like, why can I not have that? Like what, I would always come from this place of like, why not me? Instead of like, how could I help other people? How can I help this person? Or also, why can I not have a conversation with that person to like pick their brain to figure out what they're doing that I'm not doing? I didn't even think about doing those things. So making sure that you're like giving back is also part of this whole thing, because I think I'm not even talking about karma or anything like that, but when you help someone get on a gig, or you help spread information as far as like giving their info to someone else, or giving that PA's info to a key PA or a second AD, they're like, they're really good at what they do. I think they'd be really great. So, if, you have anything for them. And Paula, who was on the live stream yesterday, she does this a lot. Like me and her exchange people a lot. We're like, this person's great. Definitely like hire them, so that happens a lot. So when you start doing it, I feel like it happens for you more because they're like, people are like, Amber helped me. I want to help Amber now. Like, I don't need that, but I appreciate people who are like, how can I help you? And I love that. So I feel like when you give to others, like if you come from a place of service, sometimes you're like, I may not be exactly where I want to be, but I know I can help this person get to their next step. And I think that's a huge part of all of this. I mean, just thinking about like, not even like, karma and good vibes and energy and stuff like that, but like when people think about the favors or the things that you did for them, they're like, I want to help them now. So it's all like, pay it forward, man. Just like keep giving it forward. I want to go to the chat really quick because I feel like I'm missing things. Okay. I only did like one day in COVID department, but I had all the training done. Oh, okay. Gotcha. So that's what you mean by waste opportunity. Like you weren't on set very much. Got you. Would you consider a Facebook message similar to a text? That's a really good question, Obi-Wan. Now, it depends. I have gotten Facebook messages. I have forgotten all about Facebook messages. I have gotten those. I've gotten a few of them. It depends on if they're on Facebook and if they're active on Facebook, right? I think that is okay. I feel like Facebook messaging is like in between texting and emailing. It's like the it's like the middle ground for some odd reason. So I think that that's okay. I feel like you can do a little bit more than a text in Facebook messaging, but a little less than an email. Like, it can just be a little bit longer of a message to them. So I think that's fine. It just depends on like, do you think they use Messenger a lot? Have you communicated in Messenger before? That's the other thing. Amanda, can you say something like, I'm available now, or if you need an additional, I'm available to work? I would say, if you need anybody, I'm available. Literally that. Because if you're thinking about reconnecting, they know what position you're in, right? So, for example, if you're additional PA looking for days and you're like, if you need additionals, I'm available this time, right? Now, if you're additional PA trying to move up, then it's kind of like that wouldn't be the same text to the key if you would try and reach out to your ADs, because that is a hard jump, y'all. It is a hard jump to get from additional day player PA then getting onto the staff where you're on every single day. That's a hard jump. In order to do that, you gotta get to know your ADs a lot. They gotta remember you and being like, oh yeah, they were really, really great additional, and I think they're ready for the next level. They're ready for more responsibility. And you show that when you're an additional PA, but the key PA has no power there. So it's all about the AD. So if you're thinking about going from additional PA to staff, then that is a whole different ballgame where you have to kind of like really shoot your shot and be like, I'm ready for this. And you have to show it when you're working on set and making sure that they can trust you with like all the things. via text, even if it's a month plus later, or do you think email or LinkedIn is better? Okay, a month plus, where we go? Let's go back to the thing. A month, we can do text or email, right? Didn't we say? Oh no, a month we can do text. I think we said. Let's see what yeah, a month. So 1 month to 6 months is text is fine, I think. You can use LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn though is, is like really, really professional. I definitely would use LinkedIn when you're making contacts, and use LinkedIn to make sure that you're connecting to your people, right? So if you know ADs, then make sure you're connecting with them because you actually know them. And then, but if you know them, I feel like LinkedIn's a little impersonal. Does that make sense? I feel like it's not personal enough. So like if you have their information, why wouldn't you just send them an email or a text? Why would you do it over an app? Does that make sense? I feel like if you're close enough to send a text, send a text. Okay, I have one more thing. We're talking about the power of following up. I have an email I have to get to, but in this email, I have to reply. He's one of my online course alumni, and I did like a one-on-one with him. His name is Dan, and we have this long exchange about networking and stuff, because networking is hard, reconnecting is hard. There's like a fine line, there's a balance to it. It takes some thought, takes some like emotions and feelings and stuff like that. It's a lot, right? And we were talking about following up with people, and a lot of people just don't follow up. You got to follow up, folks. Okay. So what do I mean by, send the email, right? So the power of following up. So send the email means someone who does this. You meet them in person, or you meet them at an alumni event from like a school you went to, or a workshop you did, or a mixer you went to, or something. And they say, hey, if you're ever in California, and especially because maybe you had a conversation that you're relocating to New York or Atlanta or LA or something, and you had that conversation, and they say to you in person, they say, if you're ever in LA, definitely reach out to me, and they give you their information. You know how many people actually cash in on that opportunity? Like a very, very low percentage. I get this all the time, and I get this question, and I'm like, send the email, guys, send the text. Once you're in that city, or once you're, whatever scenario they said, hey, when you are blank, 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 fill in the blank, reach out to me, then do it. Send the email, send the text, because you are missing out on a golden opportunity. And I know I talked about this in one of my videos. That is such a great opportunity where someone is opening the door for you, and you didn't have to do anything besides talk to them, right? So definitely someone who is, hey, when you are here, reach out to me, or when you are on this or whatever, or when you're done with school is a perfect example. Let me know that you're doing XYZ. Like I do that all the time, where in my set pay classes, I have people who come from out of state that are thinking about relocating to New York. And I say, when you are in New York and you're moved in, you're here, let me know. And I will say a lot of them take my advice and they do it. And I'm like, yes. Taisha is a perfect example because she is originally from like Tennessee. And that's why I worked with her down in LA. So when she moved up to New York, she told me. So I was like, okay, great. I got a job for you. Okay. So making sure that you send the email. Don't be scared. Don't think about the unknown. Don't think about fear of judgment, whatever. They open the door and say in your email to these people, you're like, hey, we met here. We talked about this. And I'm taking you up on an opportunity. I'm going to be in LA here. We should meet up. You've talked about this stuff, right? So it's like, just be fearless, y'all. Be fearless. Just do it. Just send it. Just send an email. Oh my goodness. People lose out so many times because they just don't send it because they're too scared to. Or the other thinking is this, that person wasn't sincere and they weren't really offering to, meet up with me, and they were just being nice. I don't know where this comes from. And I think I've been a victim of this myself, where I think people say nice things to me, or people treat me well, or they compliment me. It's because they just want to be nice. They don't really mean what they say. First of all, that's like really fucked up perspective. There's something wrong. You should probably go to therapy to think back like why your self-worth is so low that you don't deserve certain compliments or certain opportunities that come your way, right? That's a whole other channel as far as I'm concerned. Not even like a whole different live stream that I need to cover, but that's a whole different subject, right? But when you think about like why you're not like deserving of something, and you're like, oh, they're just being nice. Well, no, get that out of your head. People say things to people for a reason, okay? They say things to people because you deserve them or because it sparked something within them and needed to share it with you. Cash in. Take the compliment. Take the opportunity. Just cash in. Okay, so the other thing with following up is when you do send a text or an email and they don't respond. Now, I said this in the beginning, is life happens. We all get it, right? You are busy, kids, death in the family, divorce, moving, all the things, medical things. There are so many items that could be on the docket for them that you just have no idea what their life is like. So if they don't respond, it might not be that they're ignoring you, like I said. Life gets in the way. Perfect example is if you are in film and you're reconnecting with people in film and they're working on set and you send a text. This happens to me all the time. I feel bad when it happens. I will get a text in the middle of the day and I'm like trying to set background or something and I'm like, oh God, and it's that's a person I want to get back to. I like look at it, I read it, then I put my phone back in my pocket. A whole 2 days will go by. I forget that I opened that text and I wanted to reply to it. So it's just a matter of like, I got distracted or I just didn't have enough time to reply. So a lot of things are happening. And that's most case scenario, like that's probably like most common that happens is that they're just busy and they just they meant to reply and they just didn't. So what I suggest is wait 5 to 7 days. 5 to 7 days. If they didn't get back to you, like, hey, I'm just following up. Maybe you didn't get my text or whatever. And they're like, oh my God. For me, this happens all the time. Some people send me emails and sometimes they're short, concise emails with one question for Beyond Film School. They're like, I'm a person who is trying to get out of finance and I want to pursue my goals in film. What do you think about changing careers? And I have to be like, okay, it's a short email, but that's a long answer. Sometimes they're longer emails where they're like paragraphs and paragraphs of their background. They give me like the whole, I guess, the bird's eye view of their life. And they're like, I want to be an AD and I think that I want to do this. And they have like loads of questions. I've read that email, but then also I'm like, okay, this takes a lot more effort. I have to like read the email, have to have time to sit down, digest the information, and then also sit down and think about my response to them because I actually care about what they say. I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna be like, yeah, be an AD, blah, blah, blah. I'm not gonna like take the care and time that is needed for some of these inquiries that people are asking me, essentially about their life, right? They're like making life changes and stuff. So it may take me a couple days, but then like sometimes I'll get emails that really like I'm stumped and I'm like, I don't know how to answer this email. And it'll take me weeks to like figure out what I want to say to this person. So sometimes that happens. Sometimes like you may like write an email and you might not get a response back in weeks. And it's funny. I know this Italian AD, Juliana, I believe her name is, and she emailed me in October. And I read her email again because I when I don't get to an email, when I read an email and I don't get to it, I favorite it because I'm like I want to get to it. That tells me that I'm like I have to respond back. I have to do something. There's some action on my part to be required, right? So now I like it was like November, like a whole month went by. And I sent a newsletter out because I send newsletters. If you want to be on my newsletter, I think a link is below to get my newsletter. I get like weekly tips out. So if you want to be on my newsletter, definitely like sign up for my newsletter. I give tips and all this stuff. And one of my tips was talking about being grateful and thankful. And if someone's ignoring you, then, just give them a nudge. Just follow up. Be like, hey, and I was talking about how I appreciate when people follow up and they give me that nudge. And I know, like, now I know that she's part of my newsletter. And so what she did, like, I think, like, the hour after I sent that newsletter, she followed up in an email to the email that she sent me a month ago or a month and a half ago. And I was like, thank you so much for following up. Because I definitely was thinking about it, but I definitely didn't get to it. And I'm like, okay, she nudged me a little bit to kind of get the feedback that she was asking for initially. I appreciate those follow-ups because it reminds me. But I mean, and I know that there are some others that out there that are like, oh, I don't want to just leave someone hanging. Thank you for reminding me. So if you're not getting a response, I usually just wait like 5 to 7 days and then just follow up, be like, hey, just want to make sure you got my last thing. Hope to hear from you soon. Now, if they don't reply to that, dead end. I don't want you to bombard them and like keep harassing them. They ignore you once, okay, follow up. They ignore you twice, it's time to give up. I think at that point you're like, all right, maybe there's not, whatever. So when I was fundraising for the film challenge, I wrote some of my contacts, UPMs, producers I knew, like, hey, I'm fundraising for this thing. Because if you don't know, when you're trying to fundraise for any type of short film projects, whatever, you email people and you reach out to people personally. You just don't like put your crowdfunding campaign, your fundraising campaign online and just hope people donate to it. You have to have the system set up, but then you say like, hey, I'm doing this thing. This is why it's great. This is why I think you would love supporting it. And then you send these personal messages to people, and then you send them the link to where they donate money. So I was, reaching out to a couple of my UPM friends, producer friends, and being like, hey, I think this is really great, something that you would support. And one of my friends, and I've hung out with her a few times this year, and I've texted with her a few times, and we actually spoken on the phone a couple times. And then I texted her that, and I thought a text was appropriate because me and her were closer. So, because some people I will text that to, and some people I will do an email where I believe that they, out of respect, I should email that type of information. But if we're closer, I will text it. So I texted her this whole thing like, hey, I'm doing this film challenge. I'm really proud of it. I finally got off the ground, blah, blah, blah. And then she didn't get back to me for like a month or something. I was like, oh man, did I ask the wrong person for money? Like, what did I do? I felt really bad. So like, no, it's actually more than a month. I think it was like she got back to me like 2 months later. She was like, oh my God, I am so sorry I spaced on this. I was on set at the time. I meant to reply to you and I didn't. I'm so sorry. So that too happens where people will, and especially people who are ADs, UPMs, or producers, if they're on a job, they will get so caught up in only the people that are their professional contacts that they will forget people who are on the outside. I mean, people have a hard time making sure their personal contacts, like their spouses and their kids, are paid attention to enough. So people who are on the outside of that, like there's like the personal circle, the professional, and then outside of that who are like associates, to like get in that circle, it's like that is a lot of effort for people who are being, really they're working like 14, 15, 16 hours, like, and they're working constantly. So especially if they're like in the middle of a job or like they're just starting prep or something, good luck. So it just keep that in mind, that they're not ignoring you sometimes because they don't like you. Sometimes they just can't get to it. So that does happen. So I just want you to get that out of your mind of like, someone doesn't like me. Someone doesn't like the fact that they sent me that email or that text. So, and I think that's just like, if you keep telling yourself that, like, they have a life, tapping into that empathy of, you don't know what they're going through. You don't know how much time they have. You don't know what the stressful situation they might be going through or whatever. I always put myself in their shoes, and I feel like this has definitely helped my patience and my anger when I think about how stressed I used to get on set as a first AD on indie stuff, and thinking about how stressed I used to get as a key PA, and now I'm thinking like, oh, well, this crew member in that department has been going through this. They've been dealing with this. Therefore, this is why this is happening. I am so much more patient now. I'm like, empathy is like the secret sauce to like being like nice on set. I swear to you, if you just apply a little empathy to everyone that you like, to all your work situations, things go by so much smoother, and you're just like, wow, that crazy. All right, let's see what we have here. I don't think I have anything else after this. I don't. This is amazing. Okay, so I have some things. Open invitation for anyone if you're ever in Ireland. Yeah, Obi-Wan. No matter what part of Ireland, we're a tiny island about the size of South Carolina with the population of Alabama. I love how you're using our states as for reference. Tour guide, coffee, drink. That's awesome. I want to go to Ireland, so I will be hitting you up. And I think I have your email too, Obi-Wan. So the art of follow up, follow through, follow back. Yo, that is great. That is, honestly, following up is honestly half the battle, honestly, like really. And also, if you think about when you do a job and you do a certain day and you did something pretty challenging and you ask for feedback, that technically is like a follow-up to me. Like, that's a follow-up. Like, you gave me this task. This was a hard day. How did I do? That's a follow-up too. I like that. So I think making sure that you follow up is very, very important. I want to make sure I get all the things. I think we did all the things. So if you have any questions about reconnecting, I hope this was helpful. Please let me know if it was. I love to hear feedback. But I think reconnecting with contacts is definitely a different art form than making contacts. Two totally different beasts, and I never really thought about separating the two until like just this year. I've like tried to organize since I'm working on this new course, this new program, like reconnecting and making sure that I feel like the reconnecting is a big weak spot for a lot of people. So again, I have what do I have coming up? I have my next live stream is coming up the 10th. We're going to talk about set PA tips. I might have a guest depending on my Zoom situation and my audio, because I remember the last time I tried a guest during the pandemic, it was Daniel. We got it going, could not get his audio to come from Zoom into OBS onto YouTube. It was a whole thing. So if I can figure that techie problem out, I will have a guest on. And some people would say that she's my competitor, but we're friends. Funny enough. But we're going to be talking about set PA tips. And I think just to give people a refresher, because I know people are going back to set, things are starting up, and I just want to give people the best leg up they can. And again, on the 17th, these are all happening on Sunday. The 10th is a Sunday. 17th is a Sunday at 1 o'clock. That is the time we'll be live streaming. 1 o'clock Eastern for Obi-Wan. We're going to cover set PA tips on the 10th. And then we have the resume review on the 17th. So if you want your resume reviewed, please send me your resume at beyondfilmschool@gmail.com. PDF. Don't send me a doc, because when you send me a doc, it like it messes up the format. Like, you shouldn't be sending a doc to anybody. Don't send a Word doc to anybody, because it's not good. You want to make sure it's set in stone, your format's nice and pretty the way you want it to be. Send a PDF. So I'll make sure I'm saying bye to everyone. Thank you so much for joining me, everybody. I appreciate you are here. So Amanda and Obi-Wan, my tried and true, my go-to people who watch my live stream. Thank you so much for watching again yesterday and today. And I shall see you next week. This week I'll have a video on script supervising, going from being comparing a good script supervisor to a great script supervisor, like what makes a great script supervisor. And then I'm going to have a bunch of shorts this week. So, and also if you have any questions, please feel free to email me at beyondfilmschool@gmail.com. Thank you so much, everyone. And that is it for now. I shall see you next time.